Welcome to Open Vibes with your host, Denmika Eugene. Well, good evening. I am live here with Miss Brandee Harrington.
Hi.
And we have a topic tonight that we're going to dive into. We're going to get deep into it. It's one of those topics, so brace yourselves, that many people do not like to discuss, but we've been discussing it back and forth. We've been dealing with it, and we're just going to dive into it. So, Brandee, tell us who you are and about your brand.
Well, thank you so much, number one, for having me on your show. I really do appreciate this opportunity. And so just let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Brandee Harrington. I am a licensed real estate broker here in Jackson, Mississippi. And a little bit about myself is obviously I own a real estate company. And one of the things that I noticed in real estate before this brand took off is really the calls I would get about what do I do because my such and such passed away or we have family land and what do we need to do? And I never tied the two until this brand until here recently. And now with having I'll just be completely transparent, just being, not really having the discussion like we should have. I found myself in a situation where I was unprepared. My family and we were unprepared. And in doing so, my brand came to life. I really was birthed. God put it on my heart to really share my story with others.
Yes, very nice. So tell us a little bit about your story. Just dive right into it and how, the vision came to life.
So my story really came to life. And I'll be honest, I found myself in the hospital. My mother, obviously this was pre-COVID, and my mother had been telling me about her health, and she had been telling me that she wasn't feeling well. And so my mom, was just like, I'm not really feeling good. And, we went back and forth to the doctor and, I was thinking everything was fine. And one day she called me and she was like, no, I'm really not feeling good. I need to go to the emergency room. And so at that point, rushed her to the hospital and we sat there. We didn't get a diagnosis that night, I'll be honest. But the pain subsided. And we went and came back home, and in like 2 weeks, the pain came back worse. So I took my mother to another hospital. And I'm thinking, okay, it's GI, scenarios. We'll probably just get diagnosis, trying to be Dr. Google, right? We get all our information from either Dr. Google or Dr. Facebook, right? And I literally remember being in the hospital, taking her to the new hospital, and the doctor came in. He closed the door, and he leaned on that counter, and he said, "Well, I have a diagnosis." And I'm thinking, "Great, we're on the road to recovery, right?" And he was like, "It's cancer." And I was like,
"I'm so sorry."
"What?" He was like, "Yeah, in stage 4. And I remember looking at the clock, and I don't know why. I looked at my mom, but I looked at the clock because it was like, and I looked up, and I just had to look at the time, and I'm thinking, where did the time go? And that's where it brought my new reality in this brand to life, was because I wasn't prepared. Mm-hmm. And it was at that point that I realized the clock and was really talking to me like, you didn't do a good job of stewarding the time that you had. Mm-hmm. And that was my new reality.
Wow. Well, I'll ask you this before we go forward. Tell us the best thing about your mom.
Well, there were so many things, but my mom, I'm the only girl. So one of the great things is that I always had my mom, like, if there was, you always need to be able to call somebody and just really, no matter what the situation is, your mom is going to pick up. I will say that's one of the things I miss, is like the simple things, just calling her to be like, "Mom, what about this?" Or "Tell me about this." Because again, that's your mom, right? They know everything. So that was one of the things I could always go to and call my mom on. And to me, being a mother now, my daughters always look to me. I miss having my mom to have that conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Wow. Sounds like she was a wonderful mom. Her
Yeah.
name is Letita Crawford, correct?
Mr. Crawford, yes.
Excellent. Okay, so let's fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
After, you guys did everything you could for your mom,
Mhm.
you took care of her in her final phases, correct?
Correct.
Okay. How did you walk into that?
So, if you've been to the hospital, right? You know that when you're in the hospital, you don't get sleep. And those final phases really taught me that I need to make the most of it. So as I'm sitting in the hospital, I literally started to devise this, that we're here to start my new brand, the Coins Journal, to really refocus my energy on the situation. Because in my mind, my mother's going to get well. And I'm going to be ready this time. And for me, that was how I dealt with it. That was my coping mechanism, was to keep busy. And so it was during this time that I realized we just never really talked about this. Why? And I questioned a lot of my time, again, the TIME, where you think you have time to do it. And I just started really realizing we just never did a good job of talking about this. And this is what really led to my brand, is how I dealt with the next steps. Let me start having this uncomfortable conversation, even though we're in the hospital. And I know unfortunately, again, this was pre-COVID, so you could be there, and we could talk, and you can at least help me answer some of these questions. But
Definitely.
for me, that was what we needed to discuss. And it was uncomfortable. My brothers were there. And we just had to put it all out there, because looking at the scenario, no matter what, we needed to know now. It was no longer a conversation we needed to avoid.
Mm-hmm. So, Brandee, why do you think these conversations are so uncomfortable?
I mean, because nobody wants to talk about death. I mean, think about it. I mean, right now we know we're in a pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how you believe, whether you believe it's a hoax or whether you believe this is not a real disease, the reality of it is no one wants to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
So we really would rather not focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
We would rather not put that energy into this type of conversation, because guess what? This is a doom and gloom subject, most people think.
Mm-hmm.
But it's probably how you approach it. I think at the end of the day, it's inevitable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like we knew that today, September 15th at 6 p.m., we planned for this event, right? A lot of people across the country are planning to go have their kids go back to school. We plan for anniversary parties. We plan for birthdays. We plan for weddings. We plan for baby showers. Those are all joyous occasions. And we put so much effort into that.
Yeah.
We put so much energy into those. And those are all great milestones, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But the only difference with these events and what I'm discussing is, the date. We don't know the date.
Yes.
So in our minds, that's so long away. Then why are we discussing something that I don't know the date?
Yes.
So our mindset really has to shift.
Mm-hmm.
Because until we realize that it can happen, and we know it will happen, and we're just being proactive, we won't think this is being taboo and something we keep putting to the side, but we'll just be just like we do anything else.
Yes.
This is a celebration of life.
Yes. Yes.
Let's celebrate it by having this conversation now.
By having this conversation. I actually listened to this bishop who had to preach his wife's homegoing ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
And he did such a phenomenal job. But what I took away from that, he talked about preparation, and he, made light of the point that we know it's inevitable. We know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
We don't know the time. That's the part that we as humans can't wrap our minds around. So I think by us knowing these things, It's time to plan.
Yeah.
It's time to plan and not make these conversations taboo. Throw that out the window. Let's put it out on the table. And I believe there's a process to having these conversations. I believe that every time you have the conversation, you get more and more achieved.
Correct.
You get more taken care of.
Correct.
So go right ahead. Let's
Well, what I was going to say is you're right. I think we then start realizing that our time is valuable. And our time matters. Our legacy that we've done, everything that we're doing is valuable. And we celebrate that. It's not, we look at, we look at Kobe Bryant, which was a sudden situation, right? We look at Chaz Bowman. I mean, come on. This man, again, he was our Black hero that we really all resonated with and we loved him.
Yeah.
And it was so sudden because we weren't prepared for this.
We weren't.
But his legacy was still lived. We are now looking at all of his, like people are now, if you look it up, you'll see he was in this movie, he's Jack Robinson, he was in this. He lived his legacy. He lived his life. And I think when we really think about it, we need to make the most of our days because I think we live with better purpose when we literally live and not wait for tomorrow because tomorrow has enough situations that we need to deal with. We need to deal with the today right in front of us. And I think that's once we have that mindset and that shift, it changes everything.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so as your mom was sick, you began to document this journal.
Correct.
All right, so tell us about that process and then, tell us when the light bulb came on. That's what I want to know. When did it come on? Like, I got it.
Well, I'll be honest. So before this was a journal, this was really for my mom. And I literally was just doing this like, Mom, when you get better, this is what I'm going to have this information. I would show her. She'd be like, And I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, Then I would like Google, okay, what would that step look like? Or I'm supposed to know this too. And then I started trying to really start finding information. And I realized there wasn't a lot of things out here. Like, no one prepared me for this. So, and when I realized that, unfortunately, this wasn't going to go the way I thought it was going to go, I put this journal down and was like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And one day I was praying, and I'll be honest, my spirit said, this wasn't just about you. He's like, I understand you hurt, but it's not all about you. You got to share your story because there are so many people just like yourself who are in this same situation. And just like you couldn't find information, no one knows what to talk about. That's what I want you to do. And I was just like, ooh. And then, when you get those type of, like, I never like,
it's a task. It's like, this is, and it's purposeful and it's meaningful and powerful.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And I wasn't prepared for that. I'll be honest, I wanted to have time to be in my mind depressed, upset, angry. That's really what I was looking forward to. I was really waiting on a pity party, if you think about it, because again, this is your mother. I can talk about it a little bit better now, but at that time, I wasn't looking for that to be the answer. I really just wanted to just mourn, basically, because I should have been prepared. I don't know, like, as crazy as that sounds, like, we should talk about this. Like, why didn't we talk about it? Like, you blame yourself. You go back and you try to reconnect the dots. You try to figure out what could I have done better? What could I have done differently? Why didn't I see the sign? The woulda, coulda, shouldas all were there. Just never did it, right? So the reality then came when I got that charge and that assignment, like, go finish it. And I was like, okay. And there was a peace that I cannot explain when I said, okay. It was like whatever I was fighting, whatever that I was looking for, it couldn't exist anymore because that was no longer what I was tasked to do. I couldn't be sad because it wasn't about me. And I will never forget those words. Like, it's not about you. Like, I get it. But you need to share your story.
Yes.
And once I became vulnerable to share my story, because again, my mother I background, she had an accounting business. She had all these people she helped. So people naturally assumed my mother's stuff was together because she helped everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized from that embarrassment, you know what? This is just what happens in families, right? And unfortunately, in my family, we just didn't have the discussion. Now, when I realized that it was okay, that I just needed to be honest and transparent, that's when I got released from that burden of trying to be, perfect in the sense of this is a conversation we just didn't have.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, how long did it take for you to publish?
So after I finally, like I said, got it together, and got up off the floor crying and realized, you know what? Let me go. It didn't take long because I think, when you have a purpose and you know that you have an assignment, you lose sleep and don't even really realize you lose sleep because you know that this is bigger than you. Yeah. And like I said, most of the journal was there. It was just adding the final touches and making sure from what I wanted to look like, presentation and all those things that make it up or make it be who I wanted it to be. Those needed to be added, but for the most part, it was done. It really was just moving past, the morning stage and really saying, okay, let's get out there. Now, I'll be honest, when you try to publish it, people were like, well, we need to know your story. Like I would pitch it, but people were like, well, what happened? And that's when it made me go back. And I've redone this journal several times because people needed to know, like you have a copy. And I needed to share with people my false reality of time and my false reality of what, I was led to believe all my life. People think that you have this time that, that you're going to get this perfect time to have these uncomfortable conversations. And if you think about our conversations right now in COVID, every breath right now matters.
It matters.
So let's just, for all practical things, again, for those who have family members who are literally in the hospital, they can't tell you this stuff, right? They can't articulate, even just spelling out, go here. Because that breath is a lot to them. And we think that we are going to be in a position that we're going to be able to dictate when we're going to have that conversation. And that's what I had to be broken from is you think you were me, like Father Time, telling me when it was going to be good for you to sit down to have this uncomfortable conversation when it don't quite work like that. I mean, and I think the reality is we grow up with these movies in our head and we're going to be sitting on this bed with this white sheet, right? Didn't that how we grew up?
This is real.
Cinderella or some fairy tale, right? The reality of it always painted it to not be so bad, right? Mm-hmm. We literally had this perfect moment with the white breeze, the linens were beautiful. And I remember just like, oh, okay, and we got these lofty dreams that this is how this process was going to be. And they were going to be on my bedside, all your family. Whew, girl, that was far. That is so far from the truth. Yeah. It's a disservice for us, because we really don't, that's not how a lot of these, our family members are even going through this, right? You're literally FaceTiming your family now if you're in the hospital. You're literally texting them, hoping they can talk to you. And your nurse, I have nurse friends now who are literally holding the phone when they can come in the room for their loved one. So our ideas have been so brainwashed to think that this is the reality of what's going to happen, when the reality is we can take time just to sit down and have a conversation. Just like you and I, if we sat down and said, okay, let's plan a barbecue for when this is over, right? We gonna have the plan,
lay it all out.
Right? We gonna say who gonna be there. We think about let's even think about the barbecue. Let's think about the Patti LaBelle and Dionne Warwick.
They just had
a big battle, right? And everybody planned for that. The hype, we were ready because we knew what was occurring. But
Yes.
that's because it was already the date. I think we just have to stop saying we're going to get this perfect opportunity. I think that's the reality I want everyone to understand.
Mm-hmm.
We want it to be, but why chance it? I don't like gambling. So, and the reality of it is we're gambling on something that we just can simply just, if I sat down with you and my family member, I'd be like, listen, let me just tell you what is happening or what may happen. And if X, occurs, then you know how to do the next step, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the reality we need to have with our family.
Let me throw a few numbers out there. So 92% of people, if you ask them, they say that they have had the conversation. The reality is, and this is a survey coming from a project and a survey that was done in 2018. Reality is 32% have actually done so. So if you ask 90%, they say, oh, we've talked about that. And sometimes even when I'm sharing, some things that I have going on and what, my project, they'll say, oh, we've done that. But the reality is only 32% have. And then 21% will say they haven't had the conversation because they don't want to upset the people around them or the people that they love.
So let's talk about what type of conversation are we having?
Yes.
You say, like, what? I mean, are we just saying, hey, if something happens, what is, but what, how, let's think about this. Let's break that down. Okay. So what the percentage was, how many people?
It was 92% of the people say they've had the conversation,
92,
but in reality, only 32% had.
The numbers don't even, let's think about this. So 92% are saying we have it, but only 32% are actually going and actually physically doing it. Then we're hurting too generally.
Yes.
And we either, like you said, don't want to upset people. But the reality is, what happens when your family members are stuck calling myself like an agent or a real estate broker saying, what do I do with my loved one's house?
Yes.
So the other question I think we need to ask people is, let's talk about your legacy and everything that you work for. So if 92% of us are having the conversation, but only 32% are actually, actually tangible results, then let's talk about the other people who, for whatever reason, say you worked at a job, you have a life insurance policy. Tell me what does your family do when they don't even know that you even have a life insurance policy? Okay. I did research when I obviously wrote the book, and one of the things I found out is that insurance companies, of course, we need to have life insurance, don't get me wrong, but let's think about it. You didn't tell your family member that you had a policy?
So a lot of insurance is going unclaimed.
Billions. The statistic is there's billions of dollars between that and the state. They have billions of dollars because guess what? We didn't talk about it with our family.
Definitely. And like I said before, I think it's definitely phases. This is not a one-time conversation. No. So let's start here. And like you said, the planning process. Well, let's plan our retirement. Let's plan our life insurance. And even taking the steps to buying the plots or getting with the, some people don't like it, but getting with the funeral home and getting with somebody who helps you lay all of that out. But, I want to dig into the book a little bit. Let's jump into that because I think that will really help people at this point and they'll see and understand.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Full disclosure. So just like I said, again, it wasn't a conversation that I had. And as we dig into the book, I was just as naive to this conversation like a lot of people listening because again, we didn't talk about it. So I literally my husband would say I became probably so aggressive with completing this. So when I realized that from my statistics with realizing what I would leave, what would happen to our daughters, I became very laser focused with completing this information. And I sought out, obviously, We did living wills. We've done all of those things. And we even had to call and, have the uncomfortable conversation. Like if something would have happened, we were on vacation and something happens to us, who gets the girls?
Yeah.
When you think about people are like, what? You had that conversation? I tell them yes. Because guess what? That's a real conversation that I need to know. And I can sleep better knowing the people that need to know these answers know this is the steps.
Yes.
Because I don't work this hard just for me. I work this hard for my kids. And I need to know that if something happens, I need to know who would take care of them and continue when I pass this baton to them on what happens to my children.
Yeah.
He assumed one thing and I assumed the other thing. And I was like, no. But we had to have an uncomfortable conversation. But now it's okay. And now we understand what needs to happen. And more importantly, we know who's going to keep our kids.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people don't want to think about that. But I mean, one spouse, obviously, that's a given, but you still want to have it. And you still want to know let the people know. So when you transitioning to the book now, it made it where when I started to really understand the book, I started thinking about that in mind as I put in our information. One of the things I think when you think about getting married in a relationship with someone, you only go in it with your side, right? Your side, there's his side, but what's a joint is that's always that gray middle area. So let's get into the book though.
Yes. Love it. And I'm just as excited because I have my journal right here with me.
So before, let me tell you all this, full disclosure, before I even knew I was going to be on this show, she reached out to me and was like, I want a copy of your book. I was like, really? And I think we met through a comic friend, and she just loved the story and wanted to get the book. So I never knew that I would be on this show here today. But thank you so much for having me. So she actually gravitated to the book and actually wanted to get this herself. So I appreciate it.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
So the book. Well, one of the things is the My Coins Journal. It is available on my website or on Amazon. And one of the things that you realize when you get into the book is it really makes you sit down and have this uncomfortable conversation, but it makes it a little bit easier. It's not really uncomfortable anymore because depending on how you give the book, are you gifting it or are you doing this yourself? You find that you can answer the question. It just requires a little bit of time. One of the things I realized when I did this book was I thought about it in the sense of if I was doing this, I like writing. I like tangible things. Yeah. Because I ask all the time, like, why wasn't this an app? This needs to be an app. And I say, that's coming, but let's think about it. If something happens to you right now, something happens and all you have left is this book, right? Mm-hmm. This one little book. Don't you think your loved ones would want to have some other things, like to see your writing, to see something personal from you? App won't give you that. So think about those type of things and the legacy. And I'm all about legacy. I'm all about memories. I'm all about things of value. And I really feel like that was one of the reasons why it came out as a book first. So when we dig into the book, we realize that, you read my story in a lot more detail, but it really clearly explains to the person pertinent information that we don't, really share with a lot of people, like your date of birth and your birthplace. A lot of people don't understand that you can't access some of the stuff that we have without this pertinent information. We really think that, I don't know, I guess we just think that it's just going to come out of osmosis. Like we're just going to know all these things. And, one of the things I tell people and I question to people all the time is if I came into your house right now, what would your organization look like?
Makes sense.
Your organization is good for who?
You. What about the outside? Yes.
But if you think, and let's think about our loved ones. If you had to go to your mother, whoever, what does their organization look like? But it makes sense to them, right? And they get mad when that organization gets messed up and you be like, this makes no sense to me. Mm-hmm. But that's what we are leaving to people. That's what we have people, you're really
They have to dig through.
They have to dig through it. Like I literally have heard people from sharing my story that their loved ones left stuff in the freezer, at the bottom of the freezer. Don't ask me why, but they did. Hey, I don't know. But the problem is, what if you didn't know there was something in the bottom of the freezer? You sold the freezer.
Yes.
But their mind was thinking that they'll find it. That's some in the freezer. I don't know. But so going back to the book, I think it just helps spell it out where it's easier for anyone who, again, your loved ones know about it. Full disclosure, you've told them, hey, if something happens, find the coins book, and it's XYZ. One of the great things about the coins book, outside of the fact it's super easy and it walks you through, is that nobody really knows that this is going to have all your pertinent information. You can put it in the safe, you can do whatever. So it looks like a regular book. Nobody's reading, who breaks in the house and gets, I got asked that question, honestly. It was like, who breaks in the house and steals books? Nobody. So it's super, innocent. So as we go through the book, sorry, I had to deviate from that, but you really have a chance to tell people what you pay. A lot of times, if you think about it, I don't know what you pay every month.
Definitely.
Your bills are, again, your bills. But when you're in a situation where you now are the caregiver, like I was, I literally devised it to think, again, my mother was living. So I was like, okay, what do you pay? When do you pay this? And where does the money come from? We're not thinking, you really think about, again, if you're on a fixed income that, you kind of know where they're coming. But let's say they work. Let's say they have assets. Let's say they have side hustles. Let's say they have multiple businesses. Where does money come from? Yes. How do we know where it comes from? Because again, that's your organization system. So it really breaks it down and makes it very simple that somebody reading it can say, oh, okay, I know that's where it is. This is what I pay. And, this is how they pay it. Because let's think about your house.
Yes.
You're not about to go looking through that mail to find. I mean, you really be like, it's a lot of mail. All of it be scattered off. So you be like, is this the mortgage? Is that? I mean, some stuff is, you can see it, but some things you're like, I don't really want to go through this. But the book makes it super simple where you can be able to find everything. Okay. You also can be able to look at what dates they come out. A lot of people have things on auto draft, nothing against that. But again, you gotta know that there's money in the bank to get the auto draft, right? And then where do the funds come from the auto draft?
Yes.
Small things that we don't think about, but we need to know, right? And so that's really what it does. It just walks you through these in every account, because y'all are gonna meet my
I see a little bit
here in a minute. This is what happens when you do these videos from your home.
That's all right.
Come in. So, but it really just walks you through each one of your accounts, and then we talk about your income. The reason why the income is super important is because some family members get additional money from whatever resources that they do, right? You have that 13th check, you got alimony, you got some child support, I don't know. But some people get income from other places, and I just think you just need to document that. And then you need to document your employer. Yes. And what's their name and phone number. Because think about it. Something happens to people who you have these policies. A lot of us have renamed our supervisors. You remember, like butthole, that hole, AL. Like your spouses and them really don't know them. They just know their names. They really don't know their phone numbers and stuff. So I was literally like, you know what? You need to have this information, because what do you have to? You may have to reach out. You might have to reach out to let them know. And so that's just some things that you'll answer as well in there. And if you have rental income, think about it. You may own rental property, and people do not understand, again, as a licensed real estate broker, how am I supposed to know what your tenants and what you own if no one knew of it? This is true. Your tenants should be paying you. Your estate should be getting this money. Again, your attorneys and them, they're going to ask you this, but they have the address. Because again, I filled out one, but it never asked me for their name and phone number. And again, you will have to, this is not a just once and done. It's a continual process. Every year you look at it, you make changes, you make updates, you add, take away, and things of that nature. But the reality of it is you have it documented in one place, as opposed to, like we just talked about earlier, being scattered. One of the things that I really want to make sure I share with people, and I always chuckle when I have to tell people this, is that the book and the journal does go over two important concepts. One concept that we don't really like to talk about is that phone password.
Yes.
Yes. Now, the reason why I chuckle is because people are like, ooh, my phone password. I'm like, yeah, at this point, it's not going to make a difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let them swipe right, swipe left, and get out of it. But the reality of it is, a lot of stuff is in your phone.
In your phone.
And even when I thought about my mom, of course, I knew her code, but I used to make her like document her medicines because, you know, when you start trying to bring all those bags to the doctor, I was like, this is too much.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just write it down and then just give me it? So for me, when I started making her do that, it allowed me to be able to keep up with it easier. So if a doctor would ask me a question, I'm not going to a medicine bag. I was like, oh, let me bring it up on my phone. Let me read. This is her medicine. This is when we stop. This is what she on it. And doctors found that to be so much easier because then they were able to see the medications. And but again, I had to access, you know, certain things out of her phone, but I needed to have that password. So
yes,
the journal, it does walk you through that and ask for that information because it's super important that people have that. Because let's think about the other part that I asked you for is your passwords to your accounts.
mm-hmm.
With everything having two-factor authentication now, a lot of times when you go into these sites from a new computer, what does it do?
It asks you to put in your email and your phone, and it'll send it to your email
to your device.
Yeah.
So guess what? If you don't have access to the phone, we're not thinking about these little small things. How can we get into that account to even pay it, to access those funds? So we have to start thinking about that because the reality of it is those funds, those billions of dollars in the state is because a lack of just simple things that we just don't want to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
You see, like that in itself is like, think about it. You literally could, like one of my friends, true story, honestly, right now, her uncle has left her some money and she's trying to, get this money. But the reality of it is she has to go through a couple of steps. But the reality of it is he left her some stuff and it has her name on it. She didn't know about it. But the reality of it is now that she knows about it, she's like, oh, I think he told me this, that, and the other. Now she can go back and get this money that's left for her that probably can change her whole life, even if it's $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody left you $100,000 right now, can it change your life?
Oh, definitely. I'm trying to figure out every resource and avenue and everything. I think he said on this date that
but you think about it. The reality of it is, right now, our family is, in our culture, honestly, we don't think about these type of policies, but these policies could change the trajectory of our families.
Yes.
And they're not expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that we think that we are supposed to leave this world with debt as opposed to legacy. And that's what one of the goals that I left with the charge is change the mindset to leave a legacy. Legacy is not necessarily always financial, but it is tied to finances. But it does also charge you to leave a difference in the community and in those that you impacted. And sometimes your impact could be monetary, and sometimes it could be just what you have done for people. And I think we have to make sure that as we have this uncomfortable conversation, we realize that it's not about us.
Mm-hmm.
It's about those that are coming behind us. It's about our kids. It's about what we've worked hard for. We didn't do all of these things to sit here and literally just be able to just give it to the state. Like if you ask people right now, hey, are you working hard for your family or for the state? And they're going to say what?
The family.
So if you know that, then why aren't you making sure that from a resource standpoint, you're doing everything that you can to be sure that your family has access to that?
So let me ask you this. I think, my question is, where do you think a person has to be mentally or spiritually to really see the bigger picture of this?
I think right now, if you think about it, right now, in this season, we already are here. Think about it. COVID is taught. Now, if I would have probably did this book pre-COVID, like before COVID came to be the way it is, people wouldn't have literally, oh, whatever.
Mhm.
Guess what? We're all busy, myself included. But if you think about it now, mentally and spiritually, we are seeing the effects of COVID and what it's done to our family and our lives of not planning. We're seeing how quickly a disease or non-planning has caused so much chaos in our family and in our generations.
Yes.
Because now we're having loved ones basically have to take and bury their mom and their dad, or a brother or a sister or something.
The whole house.
Exactly. And nobody is knowing what's going on. And literally we're all sitting there like, wait, what's happening? And it's happening so fast that we are now mentally, we're prepared. Whether we want to agree, whether we want to or not, we're mentally prepared.
Yes.
It's on our radar.
Yes.
And I think it's on our radar because it was strategic. It is planned in the sense where have your attention. Mm-hmm. This is something we've been allowing to be swept under the rug for so long that I really feel like now is bringing an awareness to this conversation, because the reality of it is we just haven't been talking about it.
Mm-hmm. And I believe also this is a good opportunity to put your feelings in check. Start to, because when people have these conversations, some people get overly emotional. They go, they think about worst case scenario. But this is a good opportunity to walk through the steps. And every time you have the conversation, because like we said in the beginning, this is a process. I believe it'll allow you to go through the emotions, go through the feelings of it all. Mm-hmm. They want to be there because you love these people. These are, we are giving these treasures, and that's what people are to us. But if we treat them as such while they're here and present in the moments with us, we can, better deal with the situation when it happens versus if we've had bad relationships and then it happens and I didn't say this, I didn't do that. So that moves us to the next point in your book where you talk about that and you ask that hard question.
And for those, again, you got to get a copy of the book. But one of the things in the book that I had to get to a point where I really felt, you asked me earlier, so how did I get here? I felt a need to put is what I wish I had said. Mm-hmm. So many people right now, I really feel like in our area and in our culture are broken because of regret. Mm-hmm. And not having an opportunity rather to really express how they feel toward their loved ones, or even vice versa, loved ones expressing how they feel about, their family. Mm-hmm. And I think in our society and in realities, that has broken a lot of families down. So the book really challenges the person, because at the end of the day, people don't mind sharing stuff if they think nobody's going to look at it immediately. Right. So if you think about it, there is therapy in writing. Yeah. There's therapy in allowing your mind to just be by yourself and to just write. So you get free pages, meaning like line pages, to just explain, have fun and basically get things off your chest with no regret of who's looking at me on my shoulder, who's watching me, and you're able to just pen how you feel. And it is my hope that as you're penning these thoughts and these feelings, that these feelings come out where maybe you apologize. Maybe you realize you were wrong. Maybe you say you're sorry. Maybe you tell someone you love them. Maybe you, whatever, I don't know. But those feelings and those thoughts are captured, that the reader who reads it they get free. Because if you think about it, it's tied to when you read something, that the Bible talks about, obviously, how we read, we run so that the runner can be able to read the right, to carry the race. When you think about it, it's the same thing with a journal. We can't negate what is written, what you told me. If you tell me that this is how you feel, I can't go and say, well, did he feel like that? No, he just told me. Everything has been written for me. And I really feel the charge is, when people can see that my mother loved me, this person cared, this person, whatever, they can be free from what they had assumed that now they can run whatever their next race is. Because a lot of times they don't know how to express themselves for whatever reason. Maybe your family wasn't very overly, I like to say touchy-feely, or, communications and skills wasn't the best for your family. Maybe they didn't know that. They were never taught that, but they know how to articulate maybe with just, I love you, or I'm sorry, or whatever that may look like for your family. And when you're in those moments of being by yourself, and especially when you are in this type of setting, when you're starting to go through this process, this is like therapy, you really will learn and realize, like, okay, I'm leaving this legacy. I'm leaving something that I've worked hard for, and now I'm writing it, I'm pinning it down, and this is my legacy.
Yes.
And I think it's just beautiful, because now that person will be able to say, if like that book gets in their hands, they're like, wow, I didn't know this. The way I'm reading for my girls, it won't be what I wish it was. Like, these are all the feelings I continue to feel for you all. And I want to make sure that as you all read these, mommy loves you, and that how I feel, no matter what, always come back to this. If you ever feel like something, well, my mommy's not here. Yeah, I'm always with you. And you'll have this piece of, as you reread this, it'll be just like you hear me in the room with you, because I am writing it in that manner where, Mom, I'm speaking to you.
I absolutely love it. I do. I so commend you for your diligence and seeing your assignment through, because this is major. This is going to help people beyond belief. It's going to help them on their, not only on their spiritual journey, but it's going to help them connect to maybe family members that they've been wanting to connect to for so long, and people, even, extended family and things like that. So this right here, anytime you connect people, that's a gift that, this assignment to me for you came straight from the throne room.
Oh,
yes. Yes. And for you to see it through, I commend you on it completely.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
One of the things I want to share, looking at our time, is that I get often asked, how did I come up with the cover? And for those of you who are looking, this is the cover.
I love the cover.
And the cover was really birthed out of, you remember growing up, you had that couch, and you couldn't sit on that couch, right? Because that was the important couch, right? And I just remember when I was trying to design this journal, the conversations normally should have taken place where you always, you as a child, you always wanted to make it to the big room, right? Because that's where all the good conversations were had, right? And I just remember in this assignment that we, not as a family and as individuals, now our life has gotten so much busier that we're not sitting down to have these conversations anymore. So the couch is really to bring families back together, to bring people back to talking, to sit and actually have these conversations. And so the idea of the insurance being hidden and the money underneath is really just all the money that we're leaving by not having it. But it's really just once the logo and everything is really just to create conversations through legacy. That's what it's about.
Excellent. Wow. I mean, it's an absolutely beautiful cover. And the name of the book, it just means so much. Coins. I mean, now how did you come up with that?
It was birthed in there. I knew that it had to be some short and sweet. I was like, De Niro, no. And one day I was just, I was thinking about something, and I was like, outside of your family, what else do you really get upset about?
Your coin.
Your coin. And I was just like, that's it. And it was just like, okay, cool. And I was like, coins. And it was like, but think about it. Because money didn't have the same kind of thing, but coins with a Z, it's like, right. If somebody, if you go to my job, you go on your job and they'll pay you your what? Coins. Right? And we're not talking about the ones that jingle me. Of course, there's rare coins with a Z. That's why it's spelled different. There's coins of all kind of legacy and things doesn't matter. But no matter how you look at it, people talking about coins, enough of them.
Yes.
Money, right? But the reality of it is, outside of people's family, this is your legacy. This is your financial gateway to all you work for. But this is your money, and I think everything tangible in terms of that comes down to money. Real estate, your policies equal money. Your passwords is going to probably be linked to somebody's money. Your bank account is linked to money. And I think the reality is you're working to be able to have money for even a rainy day. So that's where the word coins was birthed from.
Nice. I love it. I love the idea of the couch and the money in the couch. I'm showing the cover one more time. I think this is definite. I know this is definitely something that everyone needs. It's something that, we all need to sit down, have this hard conversation, connect, and have the conversation with people you trust in your family. That is the key. You have to be able to trust these people. And it's almost in a sense of trusting them with your life. And have that connection. And it gets easier every time you have the conversation. And be okay with it and get into a place with yourself that, hey, if something happens to me, I won't have to worry about them because I'm taking care of my coins right now.
Exactly. And that's what it is. I think once you're able to do that, you see things differently. You live differently. Honestly, it's a refreshing feeling to know that, like we talked about earlier, I've planned for so much stuff and now I'm planning for this and that I'm okay. In the sense where they are covered. And that helps me be at peace, because they're covered. And that's what it's about. And for me, that's what I need to know. I feel better knowing that they're taken care of. And you hear stories of people who are literally, there's the chaos and the confusion is not from, it really comes from not knowing, like, how am I going to make it now? How am I going to do what you told me to do? Or, help me here, do this. Because again, it's your money.
And sometimes the chaos comes from, they don't know who the money goes to. Who should be responsible. And then, but if everything is laid out, then it's clear. This person has said this, and no exception to the rule. It's all planned and prepared. I spoke to Brandee once before. We talked about, I said, I really prayed about it. And I kind of had the same type of assignment handed to me. And that was, it was divine. I was, I lost an uncle and that was this year. And it broke my heart in pieces because as I'm looking for information, it just wasn't coming together for me. It wasn't, the information that some people had pieces of his life. And so we had to piece it together. And I cried about it and I prayed about it and I cried some more. And I got the revelation of doing docujourneys, documenting your legacy.
Right.
Just like Brandee and I are doing right now, but it's more private and very personal. And so Forever Stories was birthed out of that. And I just truly believe that down the road, God has greater plans for Brandee and I, because, it's an arena that's kind of untapped, but in the same token, I just see bigger because I feel like these assignments were like literally handed to us by God. So, we talked a little bit about it before, and we're just, see where it goes and what God will have. And I just believe the assignments are already written. They're there. I'm going to post on my page Brandee's link, because I want you guys really to take a look at your relationships, take a look at your life, and write this stuff down. Make it plain for people so that if anything in the event, anything happens, you are prepared. And no matter when the timing is.
That's right. And I think one thing to make mention is that during this conversation, think about it like a party. Just have a planning party. We party for everything else. We might as well party for this, right? But what we're partying for is the purpose of our life and how we want that to be spelled out. And I think it helps it where you think about it, as you're going through this journal, as you're going through this planning party, you really start to get an idea of just how blessed you really are.
Mm-hmm.
Because it could be a lot worse. I'm not saying everything is always going to be the best, but the reality of it is your perspective changes when you start being able to document. Because think about it, you could, as you're planning this out and you're telling your story, you're sharing with people and your accounts, you're like, it may not have everything, but it's something.
Yes.
I may not have all, but I'm living. I have this house, and you really get to take an account of what you do have, and you realize where you when you started from here, and now you are here, and maybe you're there, and it's like it's a good reminder to help you see exactly how far you come and how far you even still have in front of you. And so during this planning party process is what I like to say, think about it as just a gateway to just take a moment in time to document your legacy, make it plain so that the reader that runs it can run the right race. And now there is no confusion. I can't negate this, but I know that they've left these instructions and now my race can continue. And I think that's the reality that I want people to do and to take from the lessons of not having the conversation and now birthing it into let's talk about it and let's make the most and the best out of this situation.
Definitely. Definitely. I so appreciate you and your time. Let's not forget about the pen, because that pen, I absolutely love it. Yes, it lights up. And at night, I mean, it's not always, I'm not always in the journal, but I'm reading other stuff. And that pen
Thank
is so
you.
on point. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's my signature coins pen. And I don't know. Again, that's just who I am. I really like experiences. I like things to be nice. And I was like, I think I need a pen with this. And everybody was like, why do you want a pen? I was like, I don't know. But it just can't be a regular pen. It has to be something else. And they was like, okay. So, of course, the pen that she has, it is a 3-way pen. It is obviously a light, it's a stylus, and it does write. So, and this says coins on it. And so I do appreciate it. But that's my that comes with the bundle set on the website, but obviously at Amazon it couldn't do it, so I do apologize. But either way, you can get the journal and you can get the pen or go.
Let me ask you this before we wrap up. Do you do speaking engagements? Do you get like invites to different places, maybe churches, maybe events and things like that, to speak about this and share this with the people?
Oh yes, I'm definitely available for those type of conversations. I definitely think it's needed, especially for those who, like you said, from a mindset. I think our mindset is shifted, and God is preparing us for this type of such a time as this, right? Yeah. And I think with that, He is giving us a charge to really start holding us accountable. Because I think one of the other things that was birthed out of this really quickly was a lot of people are angry with God. And they're angry because they feel like God took somebody from them. They weren't prepared. And the reality, like I wanted to go through, was why? Because I thought this was going to happen, this, and we had all these plans. And God was like, but your time is not my time. And my plans are different than your plans.
Yes.
The other part that I had to learn was that a lot of times we don't know how people, where they are. Some people are tired. Some people say, you know what, I'm ready. But we want them here. And so with that being the case, I think they get angry and they, straight from God, and God is saying, no, I'm not like that. And so that was the other reason on, again, you having something tangible and seeing that. And I really believe such a time as this is to have these conversations so that this is not a taboo or a foreign conversations in our family, but more importantly, it is one where we're honest with ourselves, we're honest with our family members, and more importantly, we're honest with our loved ones as to what we need from them.
Yes.
And I think we can start closing some of these doors that have been in our families where it's created division, and we can make it where we can start having conversations again. So
definitely. And I think it'll make us a little bit more compassionate as well towards one another, because right now there's a lack of compassion because of so much frustration with things. So I think these conversations will definitely do us some good.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Brandee. Anything else you want to do with the people?
No, I appreciate you. I thank you for this platform. I definitely think it's an awesome idea, especially with you documenting our stories now. I can't wait to see what all God is going to do for you through this. And just thanking you again for this opportunity to come on here and to educate people. Again, it doesn't have to be something that's scary. It doesn't have to be something that's foreign or I think we're afraid, but just make it again like a planning party, and we just are getting this information for when this event does occur, we're prepared.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your
Thank
time. I
you.
know
Thank you.
Thank you guys for
Thank
tuning
you.
in to this segment of Open Vibes, and we will be back with you guys on Thursday. All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you.